The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
It is official. Keenan Allen is signing back with the Chargers.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
One of the best wide receivers in franchise history, the Slayer, the alien, the man that is not of this world, Keenan Allen, is officially back in lightning bolts where he belongs. So we absolutely got to talk about that, the impact on the wide receiver room, and also get into some buy or sells. Like, is the Chargers offensive line really good enough for Jim Harbaugh to be more confident than he really is? I don't know. And also, Justin Herbert, is this the absolute best team that he has ever had supporting him? And I'm going to tell you right now, unequivocally, yes, it is.
I think it's definitely the deepest, and I don't think that part can be argued at all. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And if you had Keenan Allen being back to the Chargers, you're a big winner, and most of Chargers fans are, because now it is official. We talked about yesterday how it felt maybe not a foregone conclusion, but it felt almost probable after seeming at some points of the offseason totally impossible. But now he is back, and I think it's a great move. It's what we talked about a little bit yesterday, putting aside kind of what the redundancy, that's a word that's gotten thrown out there a lot, but just the fact that he, at this age, might be better in the slot. Ladd McConkey plays primarily in the slot. At the end of the day, you're better with Keenan Allen, and there's a lot of reasons why making this move to go get a veteran, to go get someone who has elite chemistry with Justin Herbert and someone who can show up in big moments is a huge move for this team.
It really is, and I think for Justin Herbert, it's important because he gets somebody who he has just some unreal chemistry with, a guy who he knows exactly where he's going to be, who has caught a ton of passes from him. Really, I think that's super important. Also, you get somebody who's now like a real veteran in the room, and outside of Jalen Reagor, who's right now on the shelf, there's a lot of very, very young receivers in that receiver room. And I feel like this is a move that allows, Keenan Allen to come in, be able to already have that comfortability level with the quarterback, with the offense. I think he's going to feel very, very much at home. And I don't think it's going to take very long for him and Justin Herbert to get right back on the same page that they were on. And also, Keenan Allen's only a few years removed from having a career season.
Absolutely. I mean, 2023, 108 catches, 1,243 yards, and 7 touchdowns. I think the part that doesn't get mentioned enough with those stats, he did it in 13 games. I mean, he was staring down the barrel of a 1,500-yard season, with close to 10 touchdowns and close to 130 catches. Like, that is what he was on pace for last time we saw him in lightning bolts. Now, did take a little bit of a step back last season, even though he was still productive, 70 catches, over 700 yards, 7 touchdowns, hit the 777s, which wins you some money. But I do think that it was a little bit of a step back, and it's hard to parse how much of that is Keenan Allen getting a little bit older, obviously, because he is an elder receiver for sure, or just being put into an entirely different, totally kind of dysfunctional situation with a rookie quarterback in Chicago, which had to play a big part in it. And I mean, we were excited about getting Mike Williams back. Like, Mike Williams had like 10 catches last year, right? This is a dude who is still playing at a pretty high level, and I know something that is important to you and also important to me. The way that Keenan Allen left wasn't great. It was a really tough pill to swallow last year when it happened. But at the same time, now he gets to come back and gun for some records, right? I mean, he's about 1,200 yards away from being the all-time leading receiver. That one might be tough if he just sticks around in 2025. But he's only 51 catches behind Antonio Gates for being the most receptions in franchise history. So we thought he would get that last year before he was traded. Now, 51 catches feels very much attainable this year. And also, like we touched on a little bit yesterday, the ultimate insurance policy for Ladd McConkey. Yes, they both play in the slot out. Yes, you can still use both of those guys. But if, God forbid, something does happen to Ladd McConkey, there's not a more picture-perfect fit than getting someone like Keenan Allen for, the go-to guy on third downs where you can have both of those guys there. The go-to guy in the red zone now because, Keenan Allen, for the first time in his career, has had 7+ touchdowns in back-to-back seasons, which probably isn't talked about enough. And at the end of the day, you ended up trading him for a 4th-round pick that ended up kind of facilitating you getting Ladd McConkey and Tarkib Still for a 1-year rental. So much to like about this, but I do think it's interesting that he is getting paid like a starter. Per Fox Sports, 1 year, $8.52 million, which is much higher, and we'll see how much of that is an up to, right? Then they even paid Mike Williams when they signed him, right? And they still have money for offensive line if they want to still add to that. But at the same time, I don't know. This doesn't feel like something where they're saying, hey, come in and be kind of the bottom of the wide receiver depth chart kind of a move.
No, I don't think so either. Although I think it is important to have the context of where he was at with his last contract, right? Last year he was, coming off of the last year of his 4-year, $80.1 million, contract extension that he signed with the Chargers in 2020. And so, last year, if you're, considering the base salary and the, roster bonus, that accumulated to about $23.5 million that he made last year. He's not making anywhere close to that this year, it's, with 8.5, but hey, 8.5 is still good money. And I definitely don't feel like, especially where you're, consider where he's at in his career at his age, 32, 33 years old for Keenan Allen. Yeah, I definitely don't feel like this is a, hey, we're going to have you on a pitch count. We're only going to play you sparingly. But I do feel like this is hey, we respect who you are, what you've done, what we still think you can bring to the table. And Keenan's never been the fastest guy. So as far as the age is concerned, with that, bearing in mind, I don't really feel like that has that much to do with it because he's such a precise route runner. He has such an intimate knowledge of where he needs to be on the football field, and he has incredible release packages that still play really no matter how old he is. So I still feel like when you get him on the field, he's still going to be very, very productive. I think $8.5 million at this point in his career, I think that's pretty good money for Keenan, and I feel like it's a pretty good contract for both sides.
Yeah, it feels like that's what it was going to have to take him, to sign him and not have him potentially wait for a different opportunity. But I do think his game ages well. Obviously, we've seen, maybe even Stevie Johnson, right, signs with the Chargers. Yep. A similar skill set to what Keenan Allen brought at the table. Someone Keenan Allen gives a lot of credit to early on in his career for kind of mentoring him. And it can't fall off, right? This move doesn't come without its risks. But when kind of the baseline of it is a guy like that in a room with a bunch of young wide receivers to mentor those guys, there's not a lot of downside to this. And I think the other part of this is it kind of lets the rookies be rookies. Like if the rookies are good enough, they're going to play. I don't necessarily think that this stunts their growth at all. I honestly feel like they'd be going more for Quentin Johnston snaps. Maybe makes his seat a little bit hotter just because you have, Keenan Allen in front of him now. You have Ladd McConkey in front of him now potentially. But at the same time, you don't have to rely on these rookies. We've been saying kind of all offseason, if this offense is going to get a lot better, you need to have these guys making huge impact plays for you. I think this gives them a little bit less stress to have to go and be those guys right away. But if they are those guys, they're still going to get on the field.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. But I also feel like it's nice to know that they don't have to feel the pressure of having to step right in and be productive right away. Because obviously, they want to get, their NFL career started off on the right foot. Everybody wants to have that Ladd McConkey type of rookie season. But the reality is that's not always going to happen. And I think it's nice to know that Trey Harris and KLS don't have to feel like the weight of the world is on their shoulders. The weight of the Chargers offense is on their shoulders now that you have somebody who has been there, done that, and also can help bring them along and really kind of help mentor them. Obviously, you have not Sanjay Lal, the Chargers wide receiver coach, who has done a fantastic job since he's been here. But there is one thing hearing the voice of a coach and another hearing the voice of a player, a peer, somebody who's been there, done that on the football field that can go out there and physically show you what you need to do. So I feel like this leadership is going to be invaluable for this Chargers wide receiver room in 2025.
Yeah, and the rookies can just be rookies, which is all you should want from them. And, like I said, at the end of the day, fit, aside everything, all the discussion about how much sense this makes, you're better with Keenan Allen on your team. And it's not crazy to say that even in the year of our Lord 2025.
We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. With Gametime, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed.
After like a year of waiting, we finally know what Jordan Addison's suspension will be.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Jordan Addison gets his 3-game suspension. That is what we expected. That is kind of industry standard in the NFL for any kind of DUI or related charge. So that is to be expected. I'll talk about the ramifications of that because I'm going to guess that there's a fair amount of people listening to this podcast who aren't 100% familiar with that situation. Either maybe you're a Browns, a Falcons, or a Bengals fan because those 3 teams are now not going to see Jordan Addison. You want to know how things will change. You've come to the right place. Or maybe you just haven't quite been plugged in on this whole thing. Maybe you don't pay attention to the Vikings deep in the summers for when Jordan Addison apparently loves to get moving violations. Maybe you just haven't paid that much attention to this story, so I'll fill in all the blanks for you. Plus, things are moving a little bit in the betting markets, and not maybe in the way that you would think if you listen to the national media, which is giving you a totally different opinion of what's going on. And I think that that's fascinating, where there's this divide between national and local media about how good the Vikings feel about the Vikings. So we'll get into that sort of more esoteric discussion. But first, something much more concrete. Jordan Addison not going to be on the field for the first 3 weeks of the season. Monday night against the Bears, Sunday night against the Falcons, and then a regular Sunday game home opener against the Bengals. He will rejoin the team when the team goes to Dublin and then to London subsequently, and he will be a part of both of those games. So what does all of that mean? Is that a fair punishment? Will he appeal? I don't think he'll appeal. It's a pretty impossible one to win. The NFL has essentially given out 3 games for like every DUI. So that's, I don't think it's all that different that Jordan Addison's got pled down to a reckless driving charge, which is a fairly common thing to happen in cases of a DUI with, some kind of minor, there was no accident to it. And I don't know what the blood alcohol content was, but maybe they couldn't accurately record one. Maybe they didn't give him a breathalyzer in time, some mitigating circumstance like that. And rather than going through a whole trial about it, they will come to an agreement that he'll be able to plead down to a lesser charge, no jail time, none of that. So it's a reckless driving charge that is related to alcohol, which is colloquially known as a wet reckless. You maybe have seen that phrase around. But to the NFL's eyes, the NFL is not a punitive agency that is like trying its best to be proportionate to the criminal justice system. The NFL is a business that wants to run whatever they think the most acceptable thing of public opinion is. That is what dictates their enforcement of the player conduct policy. That is why bigger stars are going to get different punishments than, random practice squad or deeper roster players. That is why there is incongruency all over the place with how many games a DUI gets versus how many games a DV charge gets versus how many games this or that gets versus how many games you get if you bet on a game. That's why there's incongruency, right? Is that the word? There. And so I don't think that there's any point for Jordan Addison to appeal, and it doesn't sound like he's going to. He was pretty quick to take full responsibility for his actions. He doesn't think that the NFL, he doesn't think that it's like, unfair that he's in trouble for all of this. I don't think any of that's going to happen. Also, in cases like this, it's pretty common if there's going to be an appeal for that appeal to be filed like really quick. So I don't think we're going to see any stuff like that. But there are a few other angles. First off, what happens to the offense now for these 3 games? Well, it's going to be Jalen Nailor taking over his spot. Nailor's really fast. He can do all the same routes Addison's going to do. So they're probably just going to 1-for-1 that. And there is basically been no competition for Jalen Nailor for that. There was a little speculation. I kind of speculated that there would be a sort of king of the hill dynamic where it's Jalen Nailor's spot at wide receiver 3 and whoever steps up can maybe take it from him. But he has not traded reps with anybody at that spot. He's been firmly with the ones. He's been, by all accounts, having a pretty nice camp anyways. So I don't think that there's any intention for the Vikings to do anything other than just play Jalen Nailor there. Where the intrigue happens is who's going to be next. Is it Lucky Jackson, Rondale Moore, Ty Felton? Who's going to be the kind of next guy up is the intrigue. And for what it sounds like, Lucky Jackson's winning that battle with like flying colors. And forget make the team. He's like winning the wide receiver 4 spot over guys that are, household names from college football. So that's fascinating, right? And great for him. We got to see that continue in the preseason, though. Somebody like Lucky Jackson, who, was in the spring leagues not that long ago and, has been on the practice squad more than the active roster. 2 bad drops in a preseason game will undo all of this goodwill. So we're a long way away, but it sounds like he's doing as much as he can. And if he is going to take the job, this is certainly how that starts. But that's like the local camp intrigue. But if you're not interested in that and you're just interested in who is going to be playing, it's going to be Jalen Nailor, Justin Jefferson. There's your wide receiver duo. So then how does the scheme change? Well, we've seen the Vikings play with just Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. It was back when Kirk Cousins was the quarterback. It was 2022, back half of that. And essentially, it was still very much the Justin Jefferson show, as it's always going to be. You're always going to try to get the ball into his hands however you can, get him into the middle of zones, get him to find the soft spots, get him down the field, get some shots to him over the top. That's always going to be what this offense is going to be for as long as Justin Jefferson is on it. If Justin Jefferson is taken away because the defense has committed resources to doing that, doubling him, bracketing him all day, severely limiting their coverage playbook in order to do that, then it becomes the TJ Hawkinson show. And so what the offense is essentially every play that is designed for Justin Jefferson to be the first read has TJ Hawkinson running some kind of cover 2 beater, or is part of a concept that is some kind of cover 2 beater. Essentially, you just pull out only the plays of your playbook that have cover 2 beaters on them. Cover 2 is going to be the best weapon against Justin Jefferson, not because Justin Jefferson struggles against cover 2 or anything like that, but because it's the easiest way to get a double team on him. And so that's what I would imagine a lot of those defenses are going to focus on, is getting your cover 2, get somebody up over the top, cap Justin Jefferson and try to make somebody else beat you. And then it's going to be a matter of how the Vikings can play their cover 2 beaters. Last year, teams that did this got turbo punished. But a lot of that was because of Jordan Addison running corners or seams or posts between those 2 safeties or getting the ball in his hands and making somebody miss. Can TJ Hawkinson be that guy becomes the question. And then the other angle of this is what it means for Jordan Addison's future with the Vikings. I'm going to be honest. I think a lot of people learned about this for the first time when Adam Schefter tweeted Jordan Addison is suspended. And when you're learning about this for the first time, and you think the Vikings are learning about this for the first time, you're going to be like, whoa, are the Vikings going to be mad at Jordan Addison over this? And are they going to, have their own problem with goodwill? Well, whatever that was resolved last year when the story first broke and suspension was still pending. Just because the league took a year to do it doesn't mean it needs to be relitigated in the organization. Whatever they've said to each other, they've said to each other. Whatever they said to each other about the first one, they've said to each other. But those 2 incidents are still the only 2 incidents. And if you didn't hear about it last year and you're just hearing about it now, that's fine. But understand that the Vikings have have long understood that this was going to be the case, have made their peace with it, have had their talking to with Jordan Addison about it. And everybody has very much moved on, and now they're just trying to schematically figure out the way to have a good offense despite losing one of the best players on your team, which Jordan Addison very much is. And I will not hear guff about that take. He's very good at wide receiver.
Breaking news, the Los Angeles Rams and running back Kyren Williams have agreed to a big contract extension.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast.
Some breaking news about Kyren Williams finally getting that contract extension that he was after. All offseason, Kyren said he had faith that a deal would get done, that he wanted to just complete this deal so he could focus on football, take care of his family, take care of himself. He loves being a Ram. Sean McVay and Les Snead, they talked about wanting to form a long-term partnership and how much they love Kyren Williams. This is one of the most effortless, amicable contract negotiations that we've seen in a while. I mean, just zero drama at all. Kyren showing up, never bad-mouthing the organization, never doing anything other than talking about how much he loves this team and being a part of this group. And today he gets rewarded by the organization that he's going to spend the prime of his career with. The deal specifics are, it's a 3-year deal. It's worth $33 million, $23 million guaranteed. So $23 million for number 23 for the Rams. And this is a fair deal. Let's be honest. This is a fair deal for a guy that is not getting superstar Saquon Barkley money or anything like that, but he is getting more than Najee and Mason and Harris and Warren, getting less than Pollard and Chuba Hubbard and Swift and Connor. I mean, Monty, he is getting less than some of the backs in this league, but he's also getting more than a good amount of the backs in this league. And I think that what this deal indicates to me is that it was a negotiation process with his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, to try to say, okay, I love this team. I love the fit. I love the scheme. I have success here, and I will take a little less, and the trade-off is more guaranteed money. And he got $23 million guaranteed. And when you look at how this deal is laid out, essentially, you could get out of this deal after 2 years. It's effectively a 2-year, $23 million deal. And hopefully everything goes well. He stays healthy. He doesn't lose his talents. But look, the truth is that when running backs fall out of their prime, they start to age from 27 to 29. And Blake Corum and Jarquez Hunter, if they develop, look, you could get out of this deal if you needed to. It wouldn't hurt you very, very much. It's effectively a 2-year, $23 million deal that you could easily make your way out of if you felt the need to. But that's not important. The most important thing here is that both sides are happy. And I think that is a reason why the Rams are happy, right? Because he wasn't asking for this insane number. And that kind of was my fear when you look at his statistics and how he ranked up there with some of the best running backs in the league as far as overall production for his 2 seasons as a starter. Now, there are some injury concerns in his first year as a starting running back in 2023. He played in 12 games. He made 11 starts. And last year he was healthier, and that definitely was better, I think, for his chances of showing the organization he can stay healthy and stay on the field. Yes, there are those fumbling issues that he's dealt with, most notably in the division round late in the game against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Rams still had a chance to win that one, but that fumble was costly. It's definitely nightmare fuel. Don't want to completely unpack it, but the point remains is that you want him to secure the football a little more, get a little more explosive as possible, right? Get as much burst as you possibly can. But here's the end-all, be-all on Kyren Williams, is he's got a nose for the end zone, and he's consistent, and when he's on the field, he's very productive. And the numbers, they prove that. In his first year as a starter in the backfield, his second season in the NFL, he played 12 games. He made 11 starts. He toted the rock 228 times for 1,144 yards with 12 touchdowns. Last season, he topped that with 1,299 yards on 316 carries, but had a career high with 14 touchdowns. So we are talking about a dude that nearly has 30 touchdowns in 2 years. that will play. When you're able to find the end zone as much as he is, that is incredibly invaluable. He has 26 touchdowns in his career. And I think that he still has another level that he can hit. I really do. I think as far as just the mental game, understanding the game, having it slow down for you just a little bit, I think if he maintains that athleticism and builds on the strength and gets a little more speed, just a tiny more, just allow him to break off some bigger runs, right? He's kind of one of the least explosive backs as far as just those big yardages, but he's a guy that's going to hit you singles and doubles all day, right? He's more Tony Gwynn than Barry Bonds, but I think for him, I still think he's in a really good spot to have an incredible year based on what he had last year and the offseason. He's had 16 games last season. That's just big time. I mean, 16 games, 16 starts. Only game he didn't start was when the Rams were resting starters late against the Seahawks after they had clinched. So I'm excited about this deal just because I don't think it's this crazy deal. It's going to hurt the Rams. Like, I truly believe that they're still feeling the trauma from the Todd Gurley deal. And this is the biggest deal they've made for a running back since Todd Gurley. In fact, it is the first multi-year deal that they have signed with a running back since they gave Todd Gurley $57.5 million back in 2018. And then you know the tragic story with the knees. He was released in 2020 before he had a single snap even on that contract. So even though that deal didn't work out with Todd Gurley, it doesn't mean this isn't going to be a fruitful deal with Kyren Williams. As long as he can stay healthy, as long as he can continue to be a big part of this offense, I still think that it is going to be great. I mean, like I said, 31 rushing and receiving touchdowns since 2023. 31 rushing and receiving touchdowns since 2023. That is tied for the most in the National Football League since the start of that season. So I just love his nose for the end zone, and I love the fact that this is what you do as a Rams organization, right? I mean, you draft guys, they develop, they perform, and you take care of them. I mean, that's definitely the process. That's definitely the organization you want to be. You don't want to be that organization that has to take other teams' drafted players and develop them. You don't want to be a team that relies on trades and free agency. You want to be able to build your core from within. It shows that you have great scouts. It shows that you have great player development. It shows you have great coaching. And Kyren Williams is another feather in Sean McVay and Les Snead's hat, because this is not a guy they picked up in the first, second, or third, or even fourth round. He's a former fifth-round pick out of Notre Dame. So the truth is, this is a Pro Bowl running back that has not met expectations. This is a Pro Bowl running back that's exceeded expectations as one of the most underrated, I think, but most productive running backs in the sport. So congratulations to Kyren Williams. He has fumbled at times, but he did not fumble the bag today. $23 million guaranteed, $33 million extension. Drew and Jason Rosenhaus behind the deal. And another thing this does is keeps the focus on football. And this time of year, we know that a lot of organizations, it can get ugly. We spent time last week talking about Micah Parsons and just having fun with that, the big white whale, the big fish that the Rams could pursue. And we know Kyren's not at Micah Parsons' level or anything like that, but still, I mean, we know this is the time of year where when guys want to get paid, it can get nasty. And this didn't get nasty. And it's just another testament to this organization and how they handle their business, because they certainly do that as well, if not better, than any organization in the National Football League.
Ever wished managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
The Celtics, goodbye, Georges Niang. Hello, Chris Boucher. Very nice of the Celtics to do a deal here on a Tuesday, right on schedule for the podcast. So right on schedule to have Tom Westerholm here to talk about this move. First of all, Tom, hi, how are you? Blink 3 times if you need help. Okay.
Yeah, we're in trouble.
We're in trouble. We're in a lot of trouble. And now I'm not saying about the Celtics who need help.
No. Yeah, no. But physical health and safety. I'm in a house with many children. So
all right. So you're in a house with all these kids, but you've escaped to talk about this monumental move, the monumental Georges Niang. Hardly knew ya.
Yeah.
Coming.
I think Celtics fans feel like they know him very well.
Yeah.
Really feel like they got a read on this guy. They think,
Lawrence kid, like this should have been the big homecoming, and it was just like, who? This guy? What? And like people were angry. Like I thought it was gonna be like, okay, George, like welcome back, ha ha ha. Wasn't that funny when you grabbed Jalen Brown?
Yeah.
No. So like people were like up in arms, and he's gone, and people are happy.
I mean, I will say the two whatever Reddit whatever, but like two reaction like RJ Lewis, one of my junior from Wiser Student 557. RJ Lewis Jr., one of my favorite players I've definitely heard of before today. And then 4305. I'm 40% certain RJ Lewis Jr. is not Georges Niang, so put a ring on it. Like people were ready for this dude to be gone, and like I don't know,
unbelievable.
I don't know. I mean, Jalen got over it. I feel like for one, it was. I just think it was such an inconsequential player to be this worked up about and this ecstatic. I think that a fair amount of it is a bit, right? Like doing the bit of hating George for some people, but probably not for everybody. I think
some people really hated him.
I think some people were really ready for this guy to be gone. After never seeing him on the court in a Celtics.
Right. They've seen enough. We've seen enough of Georges Niang to know exactly who he is, what he is as a player, and all that stuff. Yeah. So he goes to Utah. It's like 2 moves here.
Yeah.
He goes to Utah. RJ Lewis Jr. 2-way deal. This is a weird thing. I'm still not 100% clear on how this is going to work because he comes in as a 2-way guy. They could just be like, no, we're cutting your 2-way, and Amari Williams, because he apparently hasn't signed his 2-way yet.
Right.
Maybe because this was a deal that might have been in the I have no idea as far as that goes. Trying to get some clarification on that. But regardless, it's Niang and a couple of second rounders to Utah. And then on the other side of it, Chris Boucher comes in a 1-year. It's listed as a $3.3 million deal. It's a veteran minimum deal.
Right.
So it's a 1-year veteran minimum to a guy I completely didn't realize and completely forgot that he was 32 years old. I'm thinking like, oh, Chris Boucher, here's a guy in his 20s, could fit the time. Like, wait a second. No, like he's not some 24-year-old. He's 32. I don't, am I alone? Am I alone in like feeling like, why did I think that he was in his 20s?
No, you're not alone in thinking that he was in his 20s. I mean, for one, but if he was in his 20s, there's no way you're getting a guy like that for $3.3 million.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like if that guy was in his low 20s, you're like, that's a guy who's getting a pretty nice chunk of change.
Right.
Because here's the thing, right? The Celtics just got a pretty good player. Like
he's decent. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, like I mean, right away you're like, wow, this guy's big member of the rotation, like starter for sure.
Yeah,
like,
right. He's a starting center, I think, or power forward.
Up your starting center on 1-year deal, but you picked up your starting center for $3.3 million. Like,
yeah,
that is good business. And like, a guy who's like, he's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna like light the world on fire, but like he can do a lot of stuff that's gonna really help Joe Mazzulla. And yeah, I mean,
So let's backtrack for a second, because the money part is important, and I don't want to I don't want to dive in like okay, here's the financials and be boring, but the reality is 8.2 million went out, 3.3 came in, but it's not really 3.3 because veteran minimum deals are subsidized by the NBA, so it's a little bit less than that on the salary cap, which means they're about 8 million now under the second apron, which is important, and also important, only about 4 million away from the first apron.
Yep.
So now you have, okay, Anthony Simons, you can see if you can flip him and get him down, and maybe you get somebody to take Xavier Tillman for nothing, and you maneuver your way under the first apron, and now all of a sudden the Boston Celtics have access to a full mid-level or access to a sign and trade deal where you can acquire somebody via sign and trade. And even though that hard caps both those things, using both those things hard caps you at the first apron, if you make the money work, you can now, like, you can send out now Simons, or if you, how you stagger it, you can send Simons out and take back a sign and trade. I don't know. I'm going to say Jonathan Kuminga, not saying that that's going to happen, but like in that situation, you could now get involved. If you get yourself under the first apron, you could get involved in somebody like that. And that is important, right? Because we know this year doesn't mean a damn thing. This is the soft tank, this / gap year / transition. You're trying to find the pieces around
Year of Chris Boucher.
The year, right. And so our buddy Chris Boucher comes in and it's like, hey, look, he's a good player.
Yeah.
Right. He's kind of what they needed. He's small at 6'9", but he is a shot blocker, rebounder. And, last season he shot 36% from three. He's a 34% career 3-point shooter. He has 1 year where he shot 38%. The rest is kind of below average. But
and importantly, from the field test with Boucher, you're like, that guy shoots 43% from the three against the Celtics, right? Like he's a guy who feels like he hits a lot of shots against the Celtics. So, important things to keep in mind here.
That's also part of it, right? He's
remove that guy from the market.
Brad consistently going after guys that he has played against, has suffered against, all that stuff. So you getting yourself, like when we talked to Brad the second time around, I think it was post draft, or whenever it was recently in July, where he was like, he said the word flexibility 100 times. This is what he's looking for. This is about finding cheap guys to put around Tatum Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, finding some depth. One of the things we were going to talk about was the I wrote a piece on the Indiana Pacers because Rick Carlisle did a podcast and talked about how like the depth and not too top heavy stars is kind of the future. Well, this kind of plays into that discussion a little bit because you do have the 2 stars, but if you can put that depth, a bunch of equal depth, that's not just minimum guys.
Yeah.
Even if they're on minimum contracts, they're playing above the minimum, like ability wise. This is the audition. Can Boucher stick around for a couple of years and be that guy? Can Garza do that? Can Minot do that? Can Amari Williams, whenever that gets cleared up, can any of these guys? Can Hugo Gonzalez? Can Baylor Shire? Can those guys be your Benedict Matherins? Your like the Aaron Neesmiths, those types of guys that you can fill the gaps and be like, oh wow, he's playing above his head. And takes a lot of the pressure off the star/stars that you have.
We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. With Gametime, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, the lowest price, guaranteed.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Big news for Texas A&M over the weekend. They got a massive commitment, their first commitment for the 2027 class, four-star quarterback Jace Johnson. This guy is out of Lowndes High School in Valdosta, Georgia. He is ranked the number 3 quarterback in the nation, the number 61 quarterback nationally per the 24/7 Sports composite ranking. He picked Texas A&M over Arkansas, Auburn, Boston College, among a few other ones. This is just a massive get. It's always good to start your recruiting class off with a quarterback. They are kind of the guy that everybody flocks to during those classes. It helps attract receivers and running backs and offensive linemen, and they're usually very adept at leading the way in those throughout those recruiting battles. But just a huge get from Mike Elko and company. Not only are they crushing it on the 2026 trail, but now you move over to 2027 and they land one of the best quarterbacks in the country and just a physical freak in Jace Johnson.
Yeah, we've talked about it on this show. There's been lots of focus on the 2026 class, but 2027 class, the work there doesn't stop at all. And this is, evident of that. They're continuing to, focus on the future. Not just next season after this, but even 2 seasons down the line. So, but the important thing is, especially in this age of recruiting, is that the recruitment does not stop whatsoever with Jace Johnson. A&M, the coaching staff, Mike Elko, they need to be all over this guy all the way leading up to signing day. I'm not saying that he's, not committed to the Aggies, just, long term, despite, verbally committing. But I just think that in this age of recruiting, there's going to be lots of deals thrown his way, especially as he continues to grow in high school. 2027 is still so far away, for him to actually arrive at College Station. So I just think that he's going to keep getting better. He's going to keep receiving tons of offers. He's already got tons of SEC offers. So, the verbal commitment is great, as we have seen many times with teams all around the country, A&M included. That only goes so far leading up to signing day. So I just think that it's a great step in the right direction, but the recruitment continues and it needs to be super strong moving forward, because you don't want a guy like this to even consider going somewhere else. But I think, once he does get to College Station, everything goes, the way we would hope, that he's going to be, the future at quarterback for A&M. I know you got Helaman Kasuga coming in next year, 2026 class, but I don't know. I just think Jace Johnson would really be the future there in College Station. We'll see how things work out, and it's still a long way down the line. But Andrew Ivins, director of scouting there at 24/7 Sports, says he's physically advanced as a quarterback. So that's pretty big compliment right there. It says a lot about what he could do as he continues to grow, because he's still a pretty young guy. So like I said, it just has to be something that A&M has to keep their foot on the pedal with in that recruitment, to make sure that he's all in on A&M for the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And this continues the trend for Texas A&M as well. And I'll get a little bit more into his scouting report here in a second for those that are waiting to hear that. But this is a continuation of a great trend for Texas A&M as far as recruiting quarterbacks. Going all the way back to 2022, you had Connor Wegman, 5-star. Obviously, he didn't work out because your 2023 quarterback, 4-star Marcel Reed, went in there and stole that job from him and became Texas A&M's quarterback of the future there. 2024, they landed another 4-star, Miles O'Neill, the number 9 quarterback in the country that season. Brady Hart in the 2025 class, the number 10 quarterback in the nation. And then obviously this recruiting cycle, 2026, Helaman Kasuga, Elite 11 finalist, number 13 quarterback in the nation. And Jace Johnson is ranked higher than all of them in terms of the positional rankings with 24/7 at number 3 in the country. This is a guy that has 5-star potential if he continues to develop at the rate that we think he is going to. And, if he's very excited about what he's seen with Texas A&M as well. He told 24/7 Sports that they have shown so much love to him throughout his recruitment that it was very difficult for him to really look anywhere else, because they've been on him since the beginning, and that played a huge role. And he's got a great relationship with that coaching staff as well, which is something that you're starting to hear a lot of from these commits that have pledged to Texas A&M over the last few weeks. It's all about the relationships. It's all about how they feel about Mike Elko and their position coaches, and I think that that's really important. But yeah, you get into the scouting report, and you can kind of, from Andrew Ivins over at 24/7, you can really tell why this kid is so exciting. He played defensive back early on in his career before taking over as the quarterback and leading his high school to a 10-2 record as a first-year starter. He needs to get more consistent with his ball placement, but he can generate easy torque and has flashed the ability to make some high-level throws to the second and third levels. He also likes to utilize touch on deep passes and will try to layer the football all over the field and around defenders. And he can also extend plays with his dynamic movements in the pocket and can move the chains with RPOs with his contact balance. So, I mean, this is a guy that really has, you talk about baseball players being 5-tool guys. If you're talking about a 5-tool quarterback, it's accuracy, it's arm strength, it's awareness, it's footwork, and it's running ability. And he seems like he has all 5 of those things. So it's just a massive, massive pickup for Texas A&M.
Yeah, it's really not too often you see a potential guy that's seen as, a future program leading quarterback be a former defensive back. So that's pretty unique there, and definitely gives him a different perspective, potentially from the secondary. I know just at the high school level, at the prep level, but, having that knowledge already as a guy having played in the secondary could potentially give him some advantages down the line as he continues to grow as a passer and stuff. And we talked about the physical gifts, him being a runner, but only 3 rushing touchdowns last season, on 79 attempts. So it's clear that he's not trying to over run and, use his legs too much, because that's not what you want. You want him to, keep himself safe, keep himself healthy for the long term, while still continuing to focus on, developing as a passer. He's still got a lot of room to grow, but all the tools are clearly there. So I like, that was what I liked when I was looking, over his profile here, is that the rushing wasn't, too much of an emphasis. I just liked that because, this guy's still pretty young. You don't want to have him just continue to run all the way through high school, and then he gets to college and, he's already kind of been banged up a little bit. So I'd like to see that. And I said Helaman Kasuga, could potentially, not be the future if this guy comes in. It's not a knock on Helaman Kasuga at all. This guy is obviously extremely talented as a passer. It just goes to show how highly Jace Johnson is viewed, that he could potentially knock him out of the, rotation, down the line. That's still a long way to go before we get to that point. But, I just think that it's healthy, especially for A&M, to have 2 really talented guys in that room headed into the future, that they can get, make each other better, maybe have a interesting future quarterback competition in College Station once Jace Johnson gets there. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and this is a guy that's already 6'3", 210 pounds, heading into his junior year of high school. So he's one of those guys that could, really get up there as a big-bodied quarterback that, that is very difficult to find. In the SEC, it's not every day that a guy that has the potential to be 6'4", 6'5", 230 pounds by the time he's starting as a freshman, perhaps, or as a sophomore. That's a very coveted thing. So that's great there. And also, before we close this one out, another opportunity for a pretty cool storyline here, because the number 2 quarterback in the 2027 cycle, Kavian Bryant, is a major target of the Texas Longhorns, and the Longhorns are considered the favorites for him at the moment. So this, assuming Jace Johnson ends up with the Aggies, and if, Kavian Bryant ends up with the Longhorns, you have 2 of the top 3 quarterbacks in the cycle playing for, rival schools. It kind of gives you a, flashbacks of Vince Young and Reggie McNeil back in the day for Texas and Texas A&M.
Ever wished managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes.
We have the pleasure of being joined by Miami Hurricane center James Brockermeyer. Remember, he transferred in from TCU. He's an important new addition to Miami's offensive line this year. James, you guys are 5 practices into training camp. You're enjoying a day off on Tuesday. How are things so far out there on Green Tree?
They've been going great. You know, it's always a challenge. You know, getting to camp with the schedule, and it's a lot of mental and physical burdens we're going through, but it's been awesome. It's fun to do hard stuff with good people, as Coach Dawson said the other day, and really enjoying it. And there's no place I'd rather be right now.
How's the heat and humidity here compared to Texas?
The heat is probably similar. It's a lot more humid here, I would say. But everywhere I've been has been pretty hot. So I like to say I'm somewhat used to it.
Yeah, take me through your process when you hit the transfer portal back in December and you were weighing your options. Were there any other schools that you were seriously interested in? And at the end of the day, why did you decide that Miami was the place for you?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at some other schools too, but at the end of the day, I knew that Miami was going to be the best spot for me. And, understanding that Coach Cristobal has a huge emphasis on the offensive line here, and, getting to talk to Coach Mirabal and talking football with him, whether that was, on a FaceTime or, getting down here and visiting. I fell in love with the place and the culture and everything it stands for, and it's something I wanted to be a part of.
What's it like going through a practice with Alex Mirabal? Like, he seems, from what the media gets to see and what we talk to him, he seems incredibly animated and very hands-on.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty dead on. He's very animated. He's always juiced up. There's never a time where he doesn't feel like he wants to be out there. He's always very energetic, very passionate, and at the end of the day, he's very grateful to be in the position he's in, to have the impact he has on us. And we love working with him, and he loves pushing us to get the most out of us.
How do you feel about these first 5 training camp practices that you guys have been through? And you went through spring and off-season workouts, so I know it's not like you just got here last week. But does it ramp up to another level in training camp? And can you talk to me about the intensity and the physicality out there so far?
Yeah, I'd say when we practice, it's always very intense, very physical. So I mean, the practices are fairly similar so far to what they were in the spring. It's just there's more of them and a quicker time period, I guess you could say, because in the spring it's every other day, and then once you get into camp, you're going every day pretty much. But yeah, I mean, every time we're strapping up the pads, and you got to make sure your chin strap's on tight, and you're going to be hitting a lot, and it's going to be physical, and it's going to be hot, and that's what we're here for. When we're here to work, and that's what we're doing.
When it's the O-line going up against the D-line in practice, who do you find yourself matching up with the most, and who are some of the guys who maybe give you the hardest time when you're going either one-on-one or O-line on D-line?
Yeah, I mean, I get to go against a bunch of different guys. I mean, Justin Scott, Blay, and Moden, all those guys, made me bring my A game every time, and it's awesome to be able to go against such great players in practice. And at the end of the day, iron's going to sharpen iron, and I'm going to give them good looks, and they're going to give me good looks, and it's going to make us better players at the end of the day. And through that, we're going to have a better team because of it.
Talk to me about your offensive line mates. A lot of experience in that group. Playing next to guys like Inez Cooper and Cece Maui Noah, who have been foundational for the past couple of seasons. Talk about them a little bit and kind of how tight-knit that offensive line is.
Yeah, I mean, those two have been awesome. Since getting here, they were super welcoming to me. And, I got here and, learned the system. You can talk to coaches as much as you want, but, getting to work with the players that you're going to be playing with is, always going to be the most important thing, in my opinion. And, those guys welcoming me and, telling me, the way they do stuff and show me the way to how they do it here. And, I've been able to come in and adapt to that. And it's been a really good thing for me.
Does the offensive line, do you guys have any goals that you talk about and anything that you kind of internalize for the season coming up?
Yeah, I think one of the main things we want to be is, the most physical group on the field every time we are there. And we want to do whatever it takes to, win football games for the Miami Hurricanes this year. So whether that's, get on the line and run the ball every single play of the game, or if we got to step back and let Carson make some throws this year, we're going to do whatever it takes to put the team in the best spot to be successful.
So Carson Beck, you mentioned it, who like you is a transfer. You're both new to Miami. The quarterback center chemistry has to be something special. James, do you feel like you guys are developing that so far?
Yeah, for sure. Especially since he's been able to get back on the field with us in fall camp. We got here at the same time, but I think this fall camp has been really important for us. Compared to spring, because he was injured in the spring, wasn't able to practice with us. I mean, we were with him, but obviously it's not going to be the same as compared to just talking about stuff rather than actually getting live reps and doing it. But Carson's awesome. I mean, we're locker buddies in the locker room, so we're always chopping it up and getting to know each other better. And he's been great. He's awesome and he's super smart. I'm really excited to play with him this year.
Yeah, no doubt. What can you tell folks about, I've been able to catch some practices, and you mentioned he's fully healthy now. His arm looks great, and you can see him going through his progressions and also working with his teammates. Like, he seems to have the leadership as well. But to talk about his play style a little bit for, the fans who haven't seen him since he was at Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I think he can do a little bit of everything. I think one thing people don't notice is that he can run a little bit. He's a lot faster than I think people give him credit for, and he can get out and scramble and make plays. And obviously, our job as offensive linemen is to prevent him from scrambling as much. But at the end of the day, that's kind of how football works sometimes. But he's got super live arm, super strong arm. He's very smart, and he's really good at protecting himself too. As a quarterback, he can send us in certain directions, and he can read coverages, and he can see pressure indicators, and he can send us in the right direction to pick up certain looks. And he does a really good job of that. And I think it's something that not everyone will see and pick up on if you were just sitting on the couch watching a game at home or something like that.
Now, for you guys on the offensive line, not only are you protecting the quarterback, but you're also opening up those running lanes, James. And I know it's something you take a lot of pride in, run blocking, and it's become, a tradition, especially since Coach Cristobal has been back and Mirabal has been here, for Miami to be a strong running team this year. Talk a little bit about the running backs you're blocking for. We got a bunch of guys well over 200 pounds, right? With Fletcher at 225, Marty Brown 220, Jordan Lyle is up over 200. Talk a little bit about what you see from these guys in practice.
Yeah, I mean, all those guys are big, strong guys, but at the same time, they've got that gear where they can turn the jets on and go break one loose. And obviously they're really physically gifted, but I think the best thing about those guys, they all have really good vision, and they do a good job of setting blocks up so they can start one way and get a linebacker to commit a certain way, and then they can cut it back the other way, and they can make our jobs easier too, and set us up for success. And they're all really good in the passing game too, whether that's getting out and catching the ball or sitting back and scanning the field and looking for extra blitzers to pick up. They're all team guys, and they're all willing to do whatever it takes to help us win games.